Welcome to The Road Reflected with Nicole Wakeland. Automotive from the lighter side. That means cars, but also cookies, coffee, and pie. Up first, what's Nicole behind the wheel of this week?
Oh, I am driving so very many things this week. I did a lot of travel, so I traveled around and drove cars.
I feel like I've seen you not at all.
You have not seen me at all. We had cars, we have trucks, we have SUVs, and we have ATVs.
ATVs? Well,
yeah, or ATVs or OE.
I'm a little jealous of this ATV situation.
Well, we could go back to, we could do that one. That's not that far for us.
All right, cool.
So let's start off with the one that is not the ATV. So I went to, I just love saying the name of this place, Walla Walla, Washington.
Isn't like Walla Walla, Washington, where like everything, like back when they did like mail-in stuff on television, wasn't it always like, and if you'd like to try this new blender, send a request self-addressed stamped envelope to Walla Walla, Washington.
Seriously, I have no idea what you're talking about. Okay. I do not remember this. I feel like every
commercial was Walla Walla, Washington.
I don't feel like they're the hub for clearing houses for random mailing.
Right. Maybe I'm just confused, but I feel like it was Walla Walla, Washington.
Maybe you're confused.
Okay. All right.
But so Walla Walla, Washington, which is just the most fun thing to say. So this electrified drive that they did, which was a bunch of their not necessarily electrified. So EVs and plug-in hybrid vehicles.
Right. Some kind of electric thing.
So when you say electrified and people are like, oh, we're going to have an electrified lineup, that doesn't mean everything's going to be an EV. It just means some kind of component of electrification to your vehicle. So a plug-in hybrid, that counts as electrified. See? So don't just think everything's turning into EV. So this is an electrified drive. So we drove a bunch of Kia vehicles in Walla Walla, Washington. They picked Walla Walla because they made this a little bit of a lifestyle-y kind of event, which means we got to experience the area and learn about the area.
What is the vibe of Walla Walla, Washington?
It's super chill.
Is it?
It's like, so they have a lot of wine. Like the wine is a big thing, and I need to be very, very clear.
Is it very rural?
We drank quite a bit of wine, but we did not drink it until the evening. So as I'm talking about,
right.
I just need to be 100% clear. We stopped at Vineyards for lunch, and we had water and iced tea.
Got it.
Like there was, it was in the evening. We did all these wine tastings. They're very known for their wines.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And it's kind of a thing but it's like if you've been to Sonoma or to Napa, you would think they're kind of pretentious. They are. Like, it's like, oh, we're wine country. I'm sorry. We're very fancy. This is wine country. In Walla Walla, it's like you're pulling up to the table for a beer,
like
but
moonshine.
It happens to be, right?
Hey, you want a wine in a box?
It happens to be like, it's like super casual, but it just happens to be these really beautiful, beautiful wines, which is kind of neat. So they're a lot of these smaller sort of family vineyards almost. And they took us to one we visited, and the woman was so cool. I got to try grapes that will one day be wine.
So
I get to eat the actual grapes. Pre-wine grapes.
Yeah, okay.
So, and what was kind of funny is it was two different varietals of these grapes that she had us try. And it was neat because she said, you try these, and they don't taste at all like wine. And they don't. You'd somehow think they would be grapes.
Are they sweet? Like a nice
They were really
grape?
super sweet. Yeah, they were really good. So we tried these two little grapes, which was kind of neat. I'd never eaten grapes that were destined to be wine. And it was neat to see what they tasted like. So we did that. And we also learned it was so cool. So, like you see pictures, everybody thinks places like Napa and Italy and like, the wine region of France where you see the vines, there's really tall vines. They run along these trellises, which is really kind of cool. But here in Walla Walla, they get temperatures that can occasionally drop below 0, but also can be up over 110. So they have to like adhere to sort of different standards for how they grow
put them
stuff.
In greenhouses?
No, but they're not. They actually have started to. They made them a little short and squat. Like instead of being tall, instead of like thinking tall with arms out to the side, imagine you squinch up in a little ball on the ground. Because then they actually half bury the vines during after they harvest, because that keeps them toasty. So they don't freeze in the winter. So
clever.
And there's the ground is like, it looks like cobblestones, but you think that it would just be like a layer of rocks on top. No, the rocks go down something like 30 feet. And it has to do with this thing called the Missoula flood that came through like 15,000 years ago.
Wow, I'm learning all kinds of things about Walla Walla, Washington.
We learned all this neat stuff about the area. So, but it's and it's neat because it's a region that they take a lot of pride in the region. Like it's very chill. They're very laid back. They have these really cool wines. They have this really neat sort of country kind of everybody's like community kind of vibe. And they also know a lot about where they are, which is kind of neat that they're so vested in their community and their region and its history. So it was neat that as a part of this drive, we got to experience all that along with some electrified Kia vehicles.
Yeah.
So the one that I actually, I'd taken some videos that I'm sharing across my social media this week. It was the Niro EV, which is funny because my autocorrect keep wanting to spell it Nero. Niro.
Oh, like the Roman emperor?
Yeah,
kind
I'm like,
of situation?
no, not the Roman emperor. It's
Right.
Niro is how you spell it. And that's all new this year.
Now, is this like a crossover, a truck,
I want to call it a
sedan?
crossover. I want to call it a crossover.
Okay. Right.
And it's available as a hybrid, a plug-in hybrid, or an EV, but you can't get it as a gas vehicle.
Ooh. Okay.
Yeah, so it's just electrified, but a bump.
Some
versions.
form of electric. Yeah.
Exactly. So, and I drove the EV. It has like 253 miles of range, which is not great, but it's good.
Yeah,
like
right.
I always kind of feel like 250 to me is sort of the imaginary sweet spot right now. Like you should be at least 250. Should be higher than that, but
The days of being below 200, I think, are kind of behind us.
and they have this time where the automakers are kind of like, no, you really don't need that much range. So it's really easy for us to just give you a short range vehicle. Nobody really wants that.
No,
nobody really,
unless you're really urban.
right? Yeah. It's not ideal. So it has about 253 miles of range. Horsepower is 201, which sounds not very impressive. But again, remember, these are electric vehicles.
Yeah, so good pickup, good torque.
The torque, as soon as you hit that accelerator, you go, right? There's no like torque ramping up situation. So I like it. And it starts at about $40,000. So it's not... The thing is, there's a lot of competition in the segment.
Yeah.
There's a lot of competition, so it's really hard. So that price is a little bit tough. It's a little bit hard. But it does have a really nice interior. Like, they've done a good job. Like, it doesn't look like a cheap car. It looks like a more premium vehicle, which I think is, okay, so I look at that 40K and I'm thinking, all right, this feels kind of fair.
How's the infotainment?
Actually, it's fine. Where did that question come from?
I'm just curious because I feel like...
How's the infotainment?
Well, I feel like if you're trying to have like a feeling a little upscale, it's all about like... How cool is the screen? How cool is the dash?
It doesn't go like super. It doesn't go super like I am a tech wonder.
Yeah.
It's great. It has I want to say 10.25. I might be off. 10.25 digital instrument cluster
screen,
and infotainment screen, like in one of that sort of single panel. So it does.
I like that. That does look a little more modern.
I think it's 10.25. Yeah. So and they're big, so that makes it look a little bit more upscale. But I like the fabrics. They use good materials. So even though it's not like, Napa leather that's cost as much as your house, it's still a variety of fabrics and textures that gives it some visual pop, so it doesn't look like cheap vinyl.
And are we confidently avoiding any extraneous clocks?
I know you hate the extra clocks.
I hate extraneous clocks.
No, there's no extra clocks in
Excellent.
this
So this feels really upscale, like high quality, well thought out interior.
Yes. And one of the things, it's front wheel drive only, which can also, people always think that's a deal breaker if you live in the Northeast.
No, it's not. I remember when front wheel drive became a thing, and that was what we all wanted.
Right.
4-wheel drive is a nice option, but for 90% of what you do, front
or all wheel drive is the big thing.
Yeah, right. But front wheel's fine.
Yes. Well, and so also, and it's that time of year. It is we're at the end of September.
Yeah.
Temperatures are dropping if you're someplace where, winter is coming. And my PSA for winter tires, not snow tires, winter tires, because they're not just about snow, they're about cold.
Yep.
So if you have a vehicle, even if it does have all-wheel drive, even if it does have four-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, front-wheel drive, I don't care. If you put winter tires on your vehicle, you're suddenly going to find that it does so much better in the cold.
Unless you think we're not like putting our money where our mouth is. Your daily driver, the car that our kids learn to drive on, is a Dodge Charger with rear wheel drive.
It is. And what do I do in the fall?
You put snow tires on every year.
Not snow tires.
Or
winter tires.
Sorry.
Yes.
And it's fine. Now, our daughters have appreciated getting front wheel drive cars compared to rear wheel drive. So you definitely want front wheel drive, but you can survive fine with
the thing is that the winter
all nice to have, but not necessary.
The winter tires make a huge difference. Like if someone said, like, would you buy a car that didn't have all wheel drive? I said yes. If I had winter tires, I absolutely would. Sure. So if you want to have this, you want to have it someplace where it's wintry, winter tires. Okay, the other thing that I did this week, this is what you're kind of excited about. The Polaris. I hope I'm saying that right. I always want to say Polaris. But
it's Polaris.
Polaris.
I feel like it's Polaris also. It's interesting.
Polaris. Is this a potato situation?
I don't know. I'd have to look at the star.
I think it's Polaris.
Situation. Yeah.
People at Polaris, if they hear us, are going to be like screaming.
Yeah.
This is how
we need like a Hyundai like Sunday sort of rule for this.
I know. I need that for the Polaris. I'm going to go with Polaris. So I drove the Polaris Razor, which is spelled RZR, all capitals. which makes it cooler than just spelling it R-A-Z-O-R.
I don't know how to spot a Polaris. I just know that if it's a crazy looking vehicle on the road, it's probably a Polaris.
Well, this isn't the Slingshot. This is not the Slingshot.
Okay.
You're in the wrong turf altogether.
How does this look?
This is the Razor, which is the ATVs. These are the off-road vehicles that you see guys with the helmets in. And
so are they 4 wheels? Because like the Razor's a 3-wheel vehicle.
Yeah, no, these all have 4 wheels, and there's either they seat 2 or they seat 4. So you can have longer ones or tinier ones, and there's like little variations. So
these are little versions like the quads with roll cage kind of situation.
Exactly what it is, right? So you take it out there off road, and the thing with these is you can't just like run this through your neighbor's fields. Like you have to drive these where you're allowed to drive it.
Because they will like rip things.
They will rip the bejesus out of the ground. So there's like areas where there's off road driving and these kinds of things are allowed. In fact, the parks that we were in, you could drive these, but you couldn't. They actually have gates periodically that you have to really slow down to kind of get through, because that keeps people in actual vehicles. Like you're not allowed to bring highway vehicles on a lot of these trails.
Sure,
it's literally just for these tiny little things. Right. So like Jeeps, although they kept saying, this is so a Jeep wouldn't look through. And as Nikki and I are going through them, I'm like, I don't know. She's like, you just put one wheel on that rock and you're fine.
The Jeeps
I'm like,
could do
I
it.
kind of think
it's just like they don't want Jeeps ripping it up.
Right. So they and respect what the trails and things, and respect the place where you're driving.
And if they do get super narrow, it could be hard in a full body vehicle.
So we went. They invited us to drive, and it was they had invited me to drive these back in the spring. There's like this. I'm going to get it wrong. International Women Drivers Day, and it's basically to celebrate the fact that women do driving and that women should be driving. And Polaris has made a big effort to encourage women to go off road and do this stuff. Right. Yeah. They have a whole outreach program. They want people to do it. The one woman there was saying she started working for the company like 20 years ago, and there were all of 3 women there who had once ever driven one of the vehicles off road. They just didn't. And it was always like a woman was there driving, but she was with her boyfriend or she was with her husband. Right. Or like it wasn't often just a bunch of women went out there and drove, which we actually saw a bunch of women. Okay. So it's kind of fun. You're driving around and it's this really neat community. Like I think it's kind of like Jeep is its own community. Yeah. There's off-roaders or it's like hikers. You're hiking, you always say hello to people when you're hiking. You yield to each other on a path. When you're on a narrow spot, you try to be kind to each other. They do the same thing with this. Sure. Like people get out of the way. You'll see somebody that stopped every now and then and people will look like, do you need a hand? You okay?
Gas,
no, we're good.
Right.
So there is a sense of community here that's kind of cool. I mean, there's always people that can be like meh in any group, but this is kind of a neat little community. We did see one group of vehicles and they were all had like they're instead of being like red or blue or whatever, there was lots of pink trim on these, but they have these like long skinny, I want to say like LED, like they're flexible lights that they put up so that if you're driving after hours or if it gets a little dark or whatever, and they're so that you can
see them driving around.
They were pink. They were all pink.
Awesome.
Little pink lights. So that was kind of fun. So we got to both go camping at this place up in northern New Hampshire. It is really, really up there, and I just lost the name of it. Great. Oh my gosh. Bear Rock. I suddenly had great in my head. Bear Rock Adventures, which is in Colebrook, New Hampshire, which is why they sent me, because I'm in New Hampshire.
That's far north New Hampshire.
Yeah. It's so far north that if you make a wrong turn off road and
you're in Canada.
No, as I put it, one wrong turn and you've made an illegal border crossing. Like,
that's right.
Like, whoops, I'm in Canada, right?
You now invaded a kind of the country.
I've invaded Canada by accident. So we did not, though. I'll have you know that we stayed firmly in the United States and caused no international incidents. But it was really fun. And I've driven these a few times. They said, bring a friend with you. So I bought my best friend, Nikki. We thought they're perfect. They're trying to promote women driving this.
Yeah,
we sent a couple of girls.
I saw one of the
there.
videos. You guys look like having an amazing time.
Oh my gosh, she had
mud.
me record this video, and I said to her, I said, I know you want to go screaming through here like a maniac. I am trying to hold my phone. If my phone goes into the mud, realize you're owing me a new phone. She's like, okay, I'll take it easy.
And if you've ever watched an episode of Northwood's Law, you know that like 90% of what these guys do is watch for people on ATVs going too fast through the woods.
So they warned us. The guys at Bear Rock Adventures, who are fantastic, they were a really great group of guys. They were totally willing to make sure you knew what you were doing and help you, because it's one of the official Polaris outfitters. I think they said they have about 200 of them. They just have the Polaris ATVs. They set you up like this one had this really glamping.
They're Polaris people.
Yeah, they had this glamping, kind of glamping-ish, like safari tent out there.
On wood kind of situation?
Yeah, where it's like a wooden surface.
Right.
They had a shower, but it was like 4 walls with an outside.
You're
It
in the
was 40
woods.
degrees.
When you're that far north, you're lucky to have a roof over your head and a hole
It
to
wasn't
pee in.
even that it was just like 4 little walls outside. I'm like, it is 40, gentlemen.
Yeah,
I
it's
am
fall.
not.
It's fall in New England. It's cold.
And this is by the Canadian border. But they were great. They get everybody squared away. They show you how to drive everything. They make sure that you're all set. And that made it really, really fun.
That's awesome.
It was a really great time. And we drove around. They took us on a big tour that was like a 4-hour tour. And then they sort of took us on they said, okay, have at it. Drive yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I can imagine you guys just like putting the pedal down and like rooster tail in the mud.
Well, yes. And you go flying along the mud. And they had said to us, the speed limit, it's like you're on roads, you're on dirt. The speed limit is about 25 miles an hour. Stick to 25. But there are sections where it'll say 10 or 20. And very often, because you're off-roading, you're going very close to a property or something. When you see those 10 and 20 mile an hour signs, you're kind of looking at it and you think like, oh yeah, I can see.
And by the way,
why.
if you're an automotive driver and you're hearing 25 miles an hour, that's slow. When you off-road, 20 miles an hour is fast.
Yeah.
It's very fast considering these are windy, you're on constant bumps, and these are little tiny ATV, quad vehicles. You get one wrong turn, you can smack into a tree and it will really hurt.
Well, but you just don't be an idiot.
Right.
Like
don't be an
wrong
idiot.
turn, you can smack into a tree on the highway too. So don't be
No, I'm just saying like
yeah.
25 miles an hour is not slow.
So they told us that. So we're adhering to it. And we come around the corner. We're not speeding. Nikki's driving. And sure enough, there's like it's New Hampshire fishing game. And there was this TV show.
Which is Northwood's Law, folks.
Right?
They're the first ones out there.
I'm like, oh my God, it's the guys from Northwood Law. Are you going
Did
slow
you recognize
enough?
any of the major
No,
dudes?
I wouldn't recognize them. But I'm like, are you? So she's like, I'm going the right speed. And she's all, and because I said, I just don't want to be an episode of the show.
Right.
Please don't make me an
us on
episode.
Northwood's Law.
Please don't accidentally make us an episode of Northwood's Law. I don't want that to happen. And then we're driving along and she's obeying. And she's like, oh my gosh. And I don't know if it was the same guy or a different one. Then there's one right behind us. You think it's disconcerting driving down the highway with a cop? Imagine this guy in a uniform on an ATV.
With fishing game, like, ma'am, do you have your license?
I know.
Do you have an ATV permit?
I made sure I had my license. I had my helmet on. I had the documents. I'm like, I've watched the show. They're not going to get me.
I know how this is going to go.
Yeah. So it was really fun, though. We had a great time, and we did get mud all over everything. We had mud
That's
everywhere.
It should be. Yes. That's like a good off-road adventure.
I feel like a day if you've like been in the mud and you've gotten muddy and you're laughing so hard you're crying and you're just filthy and exhausted. That's probably been a really good day. So we really enjoyed it. It's it was a fun adventure for me and my bestie, but I totally think like if you had a bunch of friends or a couple of couples or you and a bunch of buddies or a bunch of women, it's totally the kind of thing if you just went out with your buddies, your pals and did this and then came back to a campsite at the end of the night and it's a campsite so you don't care that you're muddy and you're gross.
Right.
And you probably all smell a little bit because you're muddy and you're gross.
Right.
And then you sit there and have a drink and have some s'mores at the fire. We had so much fun.
Was a Polaris Razor like the vehicle? I mean, no, that's the one.
There were a lot of them.
Were there other privately owned Polarises driving about?
There were, oh my gosh, there were tons of them. And the guys were telling us
They're like the vehicle to
we're
have
sort of
right
near
now.
the end of the season. I mean, it's September 24th as we're recording this. I mean, the leaves are changing up there. It's in the 40s at night. We're getting near the end of things. They said to sort of move their camps down a little bit because it's going to get too cold.
Right.
And they'll get ready for sort of the last of the season. Yeah. But it's a really fun experience just to hang out and to do this. And I thought, okay, I don't know how much, like I've done it once before. They used to have this thing called Camp Razor. They did a big shindig on the East Coast, a big shindig on the West Coast. And I had done the one on the East Coast, but I was sort of there on my own. And I'm like, as fun as it was, I was like, okay, well, that's a little different because it was a big event. This just driving around, having fun, seeing all these people, seeing so many groups of people and everyone's there's hand signals. So you even noted like you can hand signal how close, how many people are in your group. So you know when you have to no longer hug the side and you're like taking like tree branches to the face.
Or passing on the left kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but there were lots of people and it was neat to see truly. There was everything from families with kids and it's adorable because the kids, you have to wear a helmet if you're a kid. I think it's actually optional in New Hampshire. Yeah. If you're a grown up, you should wear one. We don't require motorcycle helmets in New Hampshire. Right, but wear one because you can roll anything and you can hurt yourself.
Yeah.
But like you see these little kids, these giant helmets, their heads look like little bobbleheads. But to see kids out there, to see families out there, to see people just having a good time, it was such a fun environment and such a great sense of community. I think we should do it next year. Hey, wait, did we just drive by a bakery? Okay, one of the things that we did when they gave us free reign after we did our little tour, we drove up to Pittsburgh, New Hampshire.
They just let you drive on the highway with a Polaris?
No, we didn't try. Well, okay, first of all, most ATVs...
Are they street legal? I don't even think they are.
It depends. So in certain towns... like in this town, there's areas where you can drive them on the street. In some towns, like when I was talking about that Camp Razor thing, which I think was Jericho, New Hampshire, during that event, they were legal on the streets because you're getting from A to B.
Temporarily allowed.
But like as a rule, you can't just like take your ATV and hop on the highway.
Service announcement, everybody, just don't buzz around your ATV.
There's areas where you can drive them and areas where you can't. But we drove through the dirt. We didn't get on the other than like a transition for 3 minutes. You're on a little bit of back road and then back on, and then 3 minutes you're on a back road and then you're back into the muck. We drove up to Pittsburgh, New Hampshire, which.
Also stupidly far north.
When you look at Pittsburgh, New Hampshire on the map, Quebec is like right there.
You're as close. You're almost as north as you can get.
I think part of New Hampshire, the way it comes to a point in the top, like
there's this little bump for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it's technically like almost like level with Canada. Yes. I think.
Yeah.
So we went to Pittsburgh, and it's also not spelled like Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
No.
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania has an H. Pittsburgh, New Hampshire does not, which is, how you can tell the difference.
That's how you can tell.
If you're on a quiz show and they ask you, that's what you need to know. It's all about that H. So we went up to Pittsburgh, New Hampshire. There's still not a lot of stuff up there. This is the middle of nowhere.
It's been a while since I've been up there, but I don't recall it being really heavily populated with things to do.
No, it's kind of an out there. But they did have this really cute little restaurant in like this big white sort of farmhouse situation. It was called the 1840.
Ooh, that already sounds cool. I'm intrigued.
And they said it's good enough now. I can't decide if it's good enough or it's like it's the only place in town because they had it programmed.
Best restaurant in Pittsburgh,
right? There's this and there's Bob's.
There's this in the gas station,
right? So, but it was actually incredibly good. We went to but the thing is, they also welcome ATV riders.
Of course, so they do.
Have these.
It's like Laconia welcoming bikers,
right? So you see all these ATVs parked out front. But the fun thing about it is like, okay, at least if you're a biker, you're probably in biker like in leathers and stuff, right? But if you're an ATVer, you're probably in mud.
You're literally a walking mud ball.
So to say that they welcome ATV riders, I'm like, you are brave people.
So like all the booths full of mud.
No, actually, it was super tight, and it's funny because there was a mix. They had a nice little outdoor little patio thing, and there were people that clearly just were not part of the ATV thing. That were just into that looked very nice, casual Saturday afternoon garb. They looked fine, and then there's like people. It's like, oh, you found the mud covered, right?
They got the goggle line around their eyes, it's just like white eyes, and then everything else is
exactly. Mud. So, but it was a really nice little place. It's super chill, super laid back. So we went there, and one of the things that was on the menu. And I'm going to say it wrong because I don't know. I need a Canadian to tell me how because I don't think I've had a Canadian actually say it. It's spelled Poutine. I've always called it Poutine.
I've always pronounced it Poutine also.
Okay, but I'm told we're saying that wrong.
Is it Putin?
No.
Like the Russian leader?
I was going to say it's not.
It's not the Russian leader.
Definitely not that.
It's not invade various countries. Okay.
Poutine, that should be
Poutine. I feel like an international incident is made.
It should have Russian stuff on it. So what it is what poutine is, however you want to say it, they're French fries with a brown gravy and cheese curds.
Very common in New Hampshire in general because we are so close.
Because we're so close to, and like when I say that, it sounds kind of gross. Like
it is not gross,
gravy, but it's so good. It
is a delicious, terribly bad for you food.
It's so bad for you. Like you fried, potatoes. You throw this
French
thick
fries,
brown gravy on top,
and then cheese curds. Because why would you not?
And now you can get them different places. There's places that have different varieties, and then what else?
My favorite diner here, right down the street from my house, has literally a poutine bar on the menu where you can put your own toppings.
Right. So like there'll be bacon on it, crumbled bacon, or pulled pork, or. Yes. I don't know, whatever. Like they can put anything on it. It's kind of like nachos. You can do a million different things on nachos.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like nachos.
Right,
it's
you
like
sort of bastardize it.
Core, and then there's everything else you put on there. Like up in Maine somewhere, I had like duck fat poutine.
Yeah, that was really good.
That was really good. Like there's all kinds of crazy stuff you can do.
Yeah, so we went, and so there was poutine there, and it was funny. Like we were joking about, we were only there for a couple of days up in that area. Every single place we went,
of course,
had this on the menu. Like pizza and subs. Also poutine.
Yes.
Really nice steaks.
Yeah.
Also poutine.
We took a burger with poutine on the side.
Yeah,
sure.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
So it was kind of fun, and so it was this neat little place. There were tons of guys.
Now,
there.
What made the poutine there so good?
Well, it was
just fry execution.
So it's
the
all
gravy.
about the French fries. No. It's all about the French fry. The gravy has to be nice and rich. It can't be water. It has to be like a thick gravy. But if you have soggy fries to begin with, you have a soggy mess because you're throwing gravy on top of that. So you're putting soggy stuff on top of your French fries.
Very crisp fries that are so crisp they can hold the gravy off for a little bit.
Correct.
And the other thing is, I have seen people claim they're serving you poutine when the cheese is just shredded cheese.
Oh, have you seen it with? I got one once. Russ, wait,
Incorrect.
I'll do worse. Do you know what it was?
What?
It was orange cheese whiz.
Incorrect.
Like the Velveeta messy.
Wrong.
And I was like, what is this? Like, that's our poutine. I'm like,
No.
you're an insult to Canada. That's
right.
not.
It needs to be cheese curds.
Yes.
Cheese curds.
So they like squeak in your teeth. You know,
Yes,
cheese curds
just like the
kinda
ones you
squeak?
get in Wisconsin.
Exactly.
But it needs to be on top of French fries with gravy.
Yes.
That's how you get poutine.
And that's what makes it amazing.
You can add other stuff after that. You can change the gravy out, but if you change the cheese curds, you've just...
I feel like you can mess up the gravy and they're still okay, but if you mess up the cheese, you've messed it up.
If you mess up cheese curds and at the fries, I mean, because at the end of the day, it's French fry delivery, right? So the fries got to be awesome. And that's what makes this diner down the street so great, because their fries are really good.
There used to be a place and they're closed. Surprise, surprise. Remember? And we ordered the poutine once and we took it home.
Yeah.
And it was in a metal, you know, those Middletons, the plastic lid that
Yes.
you get. And we opened up and it was just like a block of mushy French fries.
Yes, I would never forget that.
I think that was the only time we ever went there, and then
Yeah.
it was closed because I'm like,
You serve bad
this
poutine.
is terrible.
Not
What is
a good
this sorry
thing.
excuse? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm not surprised by awesome poutine on the Canadian border.
Yeah, so it was worth it. So after bouncing our way, it was like an hour and a half north of where sort of our base camp was.
Okay.
And after bouncing our way all the way up there, it was lovely. And
There's a really good official Jeep trail up there I want to drive. So now I want to go up there and get some
in
poutine.
Pittsburgh, New Hampshire?
Just south of Pittsburgh, but not far from Pittsburgh. It's very far north. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, everything. If you can still be south of Pittsburgh and you're very,
That's
very far
correct.
north. Like,
Yes,
You have to get a lot south before you aren't
Indeed.
very far north all of a sudden.
Thanks for listening to The Road Reflected. To follow more of Nicole Wakeland's adventures, head on over to NicoleWakeland.com. There you'll find links to her social media from TikTok to Twitter, as well as her work across a wide range of media outlets. Until next time, keep it shiny side up.